Welcome back to Helos and Homies. Today's podcast with Daniel Patrick. He's walked one of the most unique paths in Australian culture. He's a luxury sportswear designer based out of LA, and at the age of 20, after representing both Roosters and Dragons at SG ball level, he headed over to LA with nothing but a suitcase to pursue both fashion and love. His father, Pat Jarvis, played for New South Wales and Australia in Rugby League, and his cousin, Brock Jarvis, is a professional boxer. Despite the family roots, his love and affinity for sport and fashion is clearly displayed through his brand Daniel Patrick, having worked with the likes of Travis Kelce, James Harden, countless NBA and NFL stars, and not to mention Adidas through his New York Red Bulls collaboration, plus more. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast as much as I do. Just go from there. Okay. I do that normally. I'm happy to have you on.
Yeah.
We bumped into each other last time, Bluebet Stadium, Penrith, home of the Brave. You with Timmy Manor. But the first time I heard of you was Isaac John.
Okay.
That was, 2020 or earlier?
I'm not sure, but Isaac used to come over to America before COVID every year. So we connected through, I met him in LA through Nate Miles. Yeah, so that was kind of how that connection came about. And then, we ended up doing a podcast together when I came, I guess, a year and a half ago. Yeah.
How did Nate find out? Like, my question is, so for those listening, you played juniors. So you played, was it flag at Roosters?
Yeah.
And then 20s at Dragons?
Which is the same.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. So
I played flag at the Roosters at 19, and then 20 I played flag at the Dragons.
Yeah.
And then I stopped doing footy after that and went into fashion. Yeah.
Right. So the boys that you played with at either Roosters or Dragons, did you keep in contact with them at all? And also, who are some of the names that you played with that ended up in the NRL?
I guess I've stayed in contact with a few guys, but not like heavily. Jason Nightingale was in our Dragons team.
What a winger.
Yeah. So, he came over to the States and, we caught up then. And actually, I haven't been in touch with him for a while, but I should reach out to him because he has a cafe and whatnot. And who else has played? Matt Pryor was also in our Dragons team. There was Dan Hunt.
Yeah. What about Roosters?
Roosters, who do we have? Sean Kenny Dow.
Yeah, wow.
Obviously, Justin Horro.
Yeah.
Scope. And then that's all I can remember from that group. But there's so many players that you play with that you think are going to make it and they don't go on for whatever reason. And some players that you think aren't going to make it, and not even just as a criticism. It's just like, wow, this guy has it all, and he's on the big contract and whatnot. And then this other guy who's not, ends up having a stellar long career, and it's like unexpected. And I think that's kind of like a lesson in, if it's not like, if you don't have the big contract and you're not like the number one guy, it's like, you can still make it. And it doesn't guarantee you that. Maybe it's even a disadvantage that you've been earmarked as the guy. It's probably better you're the other guy, It's like, look at Tom Brady. It was like 100th pick or something. Yeah. And he ends up being best quarterback of all time.
Wasn't it the year he came in? He wasn't even meant to be. Wasn't it because of an injury he came in that year and then he won that first year he came in as an injury replacement, he actually won the ring.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like, you get your opportunity and
just got to take it.
But you have to, you put yourself in the position, And I think it was like that with my dad too. He was reserved for reserve grade, and then I think there was some injuries, and he ended up in first grade and then never left. And it's just, you just have to. And he basically didn't let himself lose the position. He said that one year he had like a broken ankle, and he told the trainer not to tell the coaching staff, and he would just tape it in a certain way, and he'd play on it because it's like, if he didn't play, he would lose his position, and he might not be where he is, and that's just kind of what he had to do to keep playing. You wouldn't hear about that these days, but that's, I guess back then.
What was it like growing up with a dad who was playing footy at the top level at that time?
It was interesting. I do remember, when you're a kid and, everyone's coming up for autographs and whatnot. It's kind of like you don't really get it until you're a bit older. And then, so I think it was a good thing though, because there's a lot of hardworking values that you kind of, that rubs off, that you see how hard they work. And even to this day, I think he's just a hard worker in general. Like he's on the truck moving furniture every day. And then on his day off, 67 years old, he runs Brighton Beach or goes to the gym. And that's on his day off. So, those are some good qualities to, that hardworking mentality.
Was he working the whole way through a footy career? Like when he
back when Australia, they played, they worked jobs, Yeah.
And it'd just be like extra money type of thing.
Yeah, because I don't even think they made that much money, because it only really came about, they started making big money when Super League came.
Yeah.
Which was 97,
I didn't know about that. See that book there? I picked that up from an op shop.
Yeah.
I'm born in 2000.
Yeah, so you missed that. Yeah.
No idea what. I'd heard Super League my whole life. I thought they were talking about England, which they are essentially. But I'd never heard about it. I read that book. I was shocked.
Yeah.
I was shocked at like the midnight raid where they got Eddinghausen from Sharks.
Yeah.
And like, that's crazy to me, that era.
Yeah, they started getting paid they started getting paid similar to what they're paid now. And this is in 97. And if you think about inflation, it's like you had guys making 600 grand in 97, and you have guys making 750, 800 grand now as like a marquee player. It's like, think about my dad was always like, it's not about money. You do it because you love it, and that's a big thing. And I get that, but also, I don't know, I was always, not that I was into the money, I was just like, that always intrigued me. I was like, oh, that sounds like to make a living doing what you love. Obviously in America, that's what I always kind of saw, you saw athletes getting paid multi-million dollars and whatnot. Yeah. So I actually kind of liked Super League in a sense, because it kind of Americanized the sport and made it, and in that sense made it more professional.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a bit of a thing of, ARL or Super League, and it was, I guess depending on your viewpoint, people think that it was damaging to the game, but I think that, maybe it did affect it, but I think, I there were some good aspects of Super League that still, I guess, linger into what we're doing today in the NRL. Yeah.
Do you think, back to a question I wanted to ask earlier, the athletes you work with now, so you've collabed with like James Harden, NBA athletes always seen in your stuff, NFL, high caliber, like massive names. Do you think growing up with your dad getting photos and autographs and things like that, and being in the sheds with, the superstars of the game, yourself as, your dad's young boy, do you think that like kind of prefaced your, how would I word it? Do you think that kind of made you not really take as much notice of like high profile athletes and things like that as you moved on later in life?
I think that, I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but you get used to that, where it's like that you have that access and you take it for granted, I guess. And then when you don't have it, then you realize. But I don't know. When you grow up in Australia, you don't really know who everybody is in America. Yeah. And you know who obviously the top ones are. But it's not even that. I guess I don't want to be disrespectful to them, but I don't necessarily watch the game and know the game enough to be like, if you ask me of an NRL player from when I was growing up, I'd know what junior club they played for. I know what everything, and then you have this thing in your mind. It's like, if it was like Brad Fittler, I'd be like, that's Brad Fittler, but then, obviously I know Michael Jordan and whatnot, but I think that, there's so many of these players overseas that I don't really know their whole history and profile. But then I don't know if that makes it better for me because I'm just comfortable and I don't really, I don't know. Yeah, I don't put too much on it.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, I just connect with the person like it's any other person and treat them just as a person, and then just connect with them, and then from there, I'll have an affinity for where their career goes and what they're doing and watching their games, and that's why I don't have teams that I support in America. I follow players. So
who do you follow now?
Players wise,
Yeah.
Who do I follow now? Well, obviously Travis Kelce.
Yeah. That's crazy. We'll get to that.
Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone that I've kind of worked with, it's just, I guess there's just an affinity for seeing them do well and kind of following where they go. Like James Harden's now with the Clippers. So you want to see them do well, and yeah. So
yeah, it's crazy, man. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Did you grow up following basketball and things like that?
It was actually the first sport that I followed. If I look back at it, was it the first? Well, I'm trying to think of the sequence of events, but Michael Jordan was big for me back in like 1990, 1991 in school here. So I was kind of like, shopping at Foot Locker and getting Chicago Bulls gear and Nikes, and then I was big into Mighty Ducks, so I played hockey.
Yeah.
But that was a tough sport to play in Australia because you had Canterbury Ice Rink and then you had one in Blacktown, and the distance between Canterbury and Blacktown is very far, and then I don't know where the other ones were. So if you were playing, you would travel a lot, and then my parents weren't really up for it, and they're like, well, how long's this phase going to last for? But yeah, I played that. I played soccer, because my friends played.
Yeah.
Marrickville Red Devils.
Yeah, shout out Marrickville Red Devils. I've seen, speaking of Red Devils, I saw you post Beckham and things like that a few times.
Yeah.
Back of class of 92 when they were all like kids coming through, and there was one post you made where it's like, love the silhouette of the jersey. I think that football should go back to like baggy jerseys, something along those lines.
Well, it changes the aesthetic of the game. I don't know. I just look at it and I like the baggier jerseys, and I think just aesthetically it looks better. And I get that in league, there's less to grab onto.
Yeah.
But is that really a problem in soccer, in football?
For wingers, yeah, it is.
Okay, yeah.
But that's just wing. But also not like because people pull regardless whether the jersey's tight fit or baggy. People are going to pull regardless.
Yeah,
it's a foul either way. So I agree.
Like if I watch Beckham's career, you can see around 2010, that's when the jersey started to get slimmer, and I think like when he first went to LA, or even when he was at AC Milan, they still had the baggy cut.
Yeah,
and I just think it looks better, and that's just I've always been into aesthetics. I'm always into the shape of things, the length of things, the width of things, and how it all kind of goes together. Skinny top, baggy,
Yeah.
And that's how I dress, and I've always looked at sport from that detailed aspect, and it's always something that I'm interested in. And even as a kid, I was always into, what the players wore, what boots they wore, and to the point that I would even know, like, what boots every player wore, and even to the point where it's like that guy's tongue is folded down on his boot, and he has elastic on that, so that's a custom made for him, and that's not how it's sold in Rebel Sport. But I know that, and then this was 98. Well, sorry, this was talking about Brad Fittler. He was wearing the Predator, and they had at that point only Beckham had the elastic. He came up with that apparently.
Yeah.
They only brought the elastic onto the tongue to hold it down, which is genius. They only brought that in. When did they bring it in for? I guess it was the Predator Mania, like 2002.
Yeah. So that's your favorite boot, eh?
That is, the Predators are my favorite boots. So
they're probably the best boot of all time.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they finally went back to the fold over tongue now, but you can't get them. You know, I went to Rebel the other day. They had the no tongue version, and like those are nice, but the tongue is it.
Yeah, 110%. Have you thought about making football kits?
I mean, in terms of like just from a streetwear perspective, I haven't really thought about it because we've done the Red Bull kit, so I just kind of left it at that. But when I did the Red Bull kit for that, I wanted to segue that into doing something in Europe. That hasn't eventuated yet, but it doesn't mean that it won't. But yeah, that's kind of, I've always been into European football. Followed the Champions League a lot when I was a kid, and then I realized that I used to follow Beckham, and I got into football through Beckham, and I got into fashion through Beckham. There's a lot of things about David Beckham that like relate a lot to what I do in fashion, and and how I look at things, and yes, that was kind of where I started watching football, and then I got into all the other players like Zidane and Luis Figo and all those guys from that era, and I would get up early to watch the Champions League on ESPN, and so.
When you say you want to work, so for those listening, you did a collab with New York Red Bulls.
Yeah.
Gorgeous kit. It was like a yellow with, how would you describe this?
Actually, well, I called it a mountain blue. That was just the way I kind of do it, which is kind of funny because when I called it a mountain blue, it's like the Blue Mountains. Yeah. That was because it was like, if you look at the Blue Mountains from, coming towards it, it has a blue tinge to it. And it's like this really nice blue. Like in my opinion, it's like really like it's a washed out blue. Yeah. It's similar when there's mountains in LA that I see that have that similar tinge of blue. Like but that obviously that's why they call it the Blue Mountains. Yeah. Because from a distance they're blue. But so whether that's something subconscious from growing up going to the Blue Mountains,
going to Katoomba for Christmas.
But that was what the yellow was. It was the yellow and the blue. Yeah, with a bit of red.
When you did that kit, first of all, I've got to ask, like, why are those colors? Like, where did they come from? Because New York, for those listening, New York Red Bulls, subsidiary of Red Bull, so normally just red and white. But you went in with that yellow and blue. What was the kind of thinking there?
Well, I wanted something that was off color, like not a color that they're expecting. But they have had a yellow kit with Thierry Henry.
Yeah, it was like a bright...
Yeah, it was a bright one. Like, it was like a taxi cab yellow.
Yeah.
So, I like things kind of washed out, where it's like, it's a faded black or something like that. So, this is kind of like, okay, New York taxi cab's yellow. And they I think they were the New York Metro Stars, and they had a taxi cab on their logo originally. So that was just... kind of like, okay, that's in yellow, and actually the tie-dye print was supposed to like be something about motion because the city was like always in like a constant motion, and so I tried to kind of like tried to have that element in there, but it just came out really something I wanted people to want to wear outside of the pitch as well, like on a streetwear sense. So and I always looked at English Premier League, whereas like they have a third kit that doesn't have anything to do necessarily with anything that's related to the club,
leaves room for expression. Every club's third kit.
Yeah, so I just wanted it to have, you could find the connections in there, but also be disconnected as well. Doesn't have and just be a little bit disruptive. Yeah. So
when you talk about doing a collaboration with a European club, I go for Fiorentina, so feel free to reach out to them if you got the connect.
Yeah, Fiorentina.
Yeah. Okay. They're my football club. Do you have a football club?
I mean, I like Manchester United just because that's where I kind of started my football journey in terms of that, and then I guess I kind of followed the clubs that Beckham went to, kind of how I told you I follow players in the those clubs I kind of stick to in those, respective cities, or countries, I guess.
So, United,
Real Madrid,
Galaxy,
AC Milan.
Yeah. Because
But I'm not that big on Galaxy though. But I'm not against them. I'm just saying like it's just yeah.
Because it went United. Wait, no, Preston, United, Real Madrid, Milan, Galaxy, Milan, wasn't it? And then like PSG.
Well, Milan came after Galaxy.
Yeah, there you go.
Because he came into Galaxy, and at that time MLS was still pretty young.
Yeah.
And all the players in his team, like, I mean, if you watch the documentary, it has it on there. But Fabio Capello needed him to play in a top line football to be able to be considered for the World Cup.
Yeah. So he came back to Milan.
So he had to go play in Milan.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. But when you talk about trying to align yourself with a European football club to get a collaboration done, just purely for a personal perspective, how do you even what's the first steps in even trying to make something like that happen?
Go through the kit sponsor because they're the ones that control it.
Right.
Because my MLS, the New York
Adidas,
Red Bulls one came through Adidas, and I had a contract with them. So it has to go through the kit sponsor everyone has to have a sign off on it. The club, the league, and the kit sponsor. So I had a contract with the kit sponsor, obviously at Adidas, and that's how the New York Red Bulls came about. Yeah. So just that would be the way to do it, or you have a connection to the club, and then they'll line it up with something like that. I don't know. Yeah.
Have you thought about doing something here?
I haven't really watched much A-League. I don't really know. I had heard that it had gone down a little bit, but I haven't really. Yeah, the state of it was kind of heading downhill, but I don't know. I haven't watched it to know that, but that's just, I guess, reading the newspaper kind of thing. And yeah.
When you were growing up, the NSL, which was the soccer league at the time, do you
Marconi
remember?
Stallions?
Yeah, I'm a Marconi boy. But with those kits there, they're gorgeous more often than not.
Yeah.
Baggy, colorways. For you, did you ever look at them from a design perspective and kind of pick them apart?
I actually haven't, no.
Should, man.
Yeah, I'd have to have a look at them.
Yeah, I'm starting to get, because I do the coverage for it. You follow SC Helos, so it might come across your feed, but I do the coverage for it independently. But a few of the clubs have reached out to get me old gear, and just purely for collection purposes.
Yeah.
But some of those kits are just gorgeous. So you have like Sydney United, Sydney Croatia, and they have often the red and white checkers of Croatia throughout it, and tinges of blue. A lot of the kits are dedicated to the flag or like the area they come from in certain parts, like Marconi with Italy, that light blue. And then they'll have the red, green and white as the away kit for the flag.
Yeah.
And it's just, man. It's from a design perspective, like crazy. And the colors they would use.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of, there's a wealth of creativity to draw upon from the past. Yeah. And that's what I like when I designed. You look back at certain time periods, and there's a lot to take from that and bring it into the future. Yeah. Even into the A-League, they could take note of that. Yeah.
110%.
But you think that the A-League should have like a 2-tiered league where you have relegation and promotion?
So next year, National Second Division starts. No relegation promotion to start with, whilst they figure out whether it's financially viable.
Yeah.
The problem that provides is
sponsorships.
It's good. The only fuck man, you're talking to the right person about this. The only way the National Second Division works is if SBS get it.
Yeah.
Because people need to see it. Otherwise, if it's on Paramount Plus, you're not in Australia as much, but Paramount have the A-League.
Yeah.
Like, people aren't signed up to Paramount to watch the A-League. Optus Sport have the Premier League over here.
Yeah.
People have Optus Sport to watch the Premier League. Optus customers get Optus Sport.
You're not going to go buy Paramount Plus to watch it.
No. A-League has...
But Paramount Plus has some other plus points.
Yeah, but in terms of sport, KO and Optus Sport, that's where, if not, has to be free to air.
Yeah.
National Second Division has to be free to air to work, I believe.
Yeah.
But they go, we need to figure out whether it's financially viable. The problem that provides itself is, do you actually get an accurate picture if it's financially viable if we don't have relegation and promotion yet? The problem is the A-League club signed merchandising contracts till 2030 plus.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that...
to be in the A-League. So that contract could stuff it.
Yeah, but you look at it this way in the Premier League, Leeds signs with Adidas, and then they go down to what do they call it, the championship, and they're still with Adidas. It's just like, I mean, and they still get at those games, they still get a full house. But yeah, I think the good thing about like those promotion and relegation thing, there's pros and cons to it. But the good thing is, it's like you have at the end of the year, you have a battle for staying up and you have a battle for winning the title. And instead of like the bottom teams just throwing in the towel for the rest of the year, like you see in the NBA, it's like, well, what does it matter? Where there's actually this is for blood. So, but the same thing could be said about like the English Premier League having a playoff series. It's like, it's traditionally they don't, but wouldn't it be cool if they had playoffs and then you have like a grand final at the end of it, and that would be something interesting. I don't think they would ever do it, but English are very conservative and and they're very traditional, which is fine. But yeah,
I don't think they would do it because all those big European countries, every big footballing country has the domestic cup, which is kind of seen as that.
The FA Cup and stuff.
Yeah, it's got the FA Cup holds a lot of importance to like the English fans more.
Yeah, they think it's like big. Yeah, I mean, obviously it is big, but like
for us it doesn't matter. But over in England, like of course it matters. I'm an Arsenal.
We think
boy.
It's big, but we don't like. We look at winning the Champions League or the Premier League as a higher honor than the FA Cup, and maybe they think of that as on par. So it is an important one. It was a tradition.
Yeah. Whereas in America, you don't get that. Like I know the NBA did like a mid-season thing, but
yeah, but that's different. Like the FA Cup is a good one because you could be in any division and win the FA Cup. Obviously, it's harder to win if you're one of the lower teams because you don't have the players.
This year, I think the record for the furthest they've gone so you have like the top 4 leagues are fully professional, and then in the 5th tier you have some full time, and some semi-pro players in like your squads.
Yeah.
Maidstone United are either in the 5th or 6th tier, and they made it to the round of 16.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. I proposed an idea. Now, I wanted to get onto this topic of conversation. There's no better man to ask than yourself. You have like the NBA and the NFL, and there's definitely ideas you can bring across from there to the NRL.
Yeah.
I thought about the idea of essentially an FA Cup for rugby league.
Yeah.
Because once you take away NRL, there's actually a pyramid, if you will, where you have reserve grade. So you have like even like some Bears, your feeder clubs, who are actually the top of the state besides the NRL clubs. And then you have, say, St. Mary's is a big club out here, and they're in the grade under that. And then it goes into Ron Massey, blah, blah, blah. Do you think a cup, before we take American ideas into rugby league, do you think a domestic cup that we see in football across the world would work in rugby league or nah?
Across the world? Or just
what
was really cool about Super League? They used to have a World Club Challenge, and the World Club Challenge was middle of the year, and it was every team in the England and every team in Australia, and they had a mid-season competition, and you would travel between Australia and England. Crazy logistically, but I thought that was really cool. But yeah, like I don't know,
I think, so you know how like every big footballing country in the world has their league and then they have the cup, which essentially any club, any professional club in the country or semi-pro club can win.
Yeah.
Do you think if we had a rugby league domestic cup that would run midweek, do you think that would catch legs? Where
they used to have one?
I think they did.
In the 80s, it was called the AMCO Cup. Yeah.
Do you think?
I mean, I don't know. I think they could do something. But
because your dad would have played in that, hey?
Yeah, but I was too young for that. I think I was around when I was just born.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they play a lot of football. I think there's so many. Yeah. But I think I'm all for extra opportunities to win. But then I don't know. You have the one NRL thing, and it's like that's what you're playing for. That's what everyone wants to get to. Yeah. I mean, I guess it could go either way. I'd like to see the Bears, win that, and then that could give a team like that like some sort of like, okay, cool, we should be in the NRL. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Are you a big bring the Bears back guy?
I think they should be brought back. Yeah. don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My question.
I think there should be 20 teams,
Yeah,
I think even more, but it's got to be financially viable, and then also the talent pool has to be viable as well.
If you ever watch reserve grade, the talent pool's definitely there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys. What's a good example at the moment? Warriors right now. I'm not sure if you follow league as much, but
I follow league probably more than any other sport, to be honest.
Yeah. So the Warriors at the moment have Rocco Berry in the centers in reserve grade, and then Tamari Martin and Chanel Harris-Tavita in the halves.
Yeah.
That to me says there is a talent pool out there where if you have those guys who in most other teams, like right now, those three guys go straight into that Titans team.
Yeah.
So you have these guys playing reserve grade, Penrith guys. Perfect.
Well, I guarantee you the Penrith's reserve grade team would probably have a lot of good players in it too. And the reason that they're not in first grade is, is you have like all the top New South Wales and Australian players in the team, whereas like the amount of talent they bring through, you got people knocking on the door. Those guys have to go elsewhere, and they can't hold on to their top guys either. So it's like Jerome Luai goes to West Tigers next year. They'll get next man up, and the next man up will be a superstar. And then, then there'll be another guy that's a superstar who can't get into the team because there's another guy playing 5'8", then he'll go it'll just, then they'll win a comp. You know how it goes like that. I don't know. I mean, Penrith has always had like
talent.
Some of the best players come through from there. I mean, even Brad Fittler was from Penrith, Greg Alexander, you have, that's going back. But then I think what they've got now is pretty special. Like they win a lot of the lower grades, don't they?
Yeah. Us, Gus kind of came and fixed that up. But we'd always done well in 20s when 20s was around. But Gus came through. That changed everything. And now Gus is at Dogs. The Dogs are actually having a red hot crack in the juniors as well.
Yeah,
because he's obviously identified the idea.
You have to build the
juniors. With North Sydney, you have a connection to the club. Do you think with the Bears, the idea that's proposed, I feel so bad for them. One thing I want to do this year is actually go out to the games and interview fans, like genuine North Sydney Bears fans. Because every year people suspect what should happen with the Bears. There's no doubt a lot of us agree they should be one of the next clubs in if we're to add 2 more. My question to you is, do you think
you need to add 3 more because you're uneven right now?
Oh, yeah, we're at 17.
So
yeah.
Either you add 1 and then another 2 later, but yeah.
If you were to add the Bears, do you think would you like to see them added as North Sydney? And if they aren't added as North Sydney, say they're added as Perth Bears, just purely for example.
I think you have them as, I think that you have them out of North Sydney. I think that you play them between Central Coast, base them in the Central Coast. That was the original plan to begin with.
Yeah.
You built the stadium there,
You've already got one, Mariners.
That stadium was built for North Sydney Bears.
Yeah, right.
Did you know that?
No.
Even the seats when they first had the stadium, they used to say Bears on it. Like it was in I don't think it says it anymore, but that stadium was built for North Sydney Bears. That stadium's a great stadium. That's a good place to put a league team because you're in the heartland of rugby league, and then you play them between. You play, I don't know, what do you play? A few games at North Sydney Oval. You play at Central Coast. You could still be called, North Sydney Bears, or Central Coast Bears if you really wanted to, go there. But then you create a rivalry between, Central Coast Bears and Newcastle Knights, and then on the other side you bring back the rivalry of Manly.
I think that's the rivalry.
Manly versus North Sydney. And, that was already spicy before. Not only that now, Manly kicked North Sydney out of the competition. So you can imagine that when we come back into the competition, not say we, but like when the Bears come back into the competition, that's going to have more,
Yeah. You said we.
Yeah.
You just say if Bears do enter the NRL once again, that's your...
I wouldn't say it's my team, but I like I said, I want to see him do well.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, that was, where I was kind of running around. But yeah, definitely, I try to stay a little like impartial, but I have my likes of what,
Who do you like?
I mean, I like the Roosters because I was growing up in the Shire and I went to play over in the Roosters competition so that I go play for the Roosters because, I wanted to follow Brad Fittler's footsteps, and he was at the Roosters at the time. And that was kind of like, a dream team at that point. So that was kind of how I went to the Roosters. And, I even met Brad Fittler in Vegas, and I told him that was,
I saw your photo. Yeah.
But that was what I said to him. I was like, I went to the Roosters because of you, Yeah. I used to go catch the train from school and go, train over at the Roosters. Or I even had a coach at my school who was one of the, first division, reserve grade trainers at the Roosters. And I would jump in the car with him.
Yeah.
And I would go train, every day at the Roosters, even if I wasn't supposed to be there. I'd be like, I'm going to go do my weights there every day. I'm going to go have my face there, and I'm just going to put myself in the right position because this is what I want to do. And that's what it's kind of what I do with fashion. I was like, okay, I'm going to do fashion. I'm going to go first I was going to go to New York, and then I went to LA. It's got to be in the right place, You put yourself in a position to succeed. Yeah. So
when you went to LA, you had what was it? The story goes, you had a suitcase, and your current wife, who I just met, you were going over there to also pursue.
Yeah, I was going back and forth to pursue it, and then eventually I was like, I just want to go there and not come back, in a sense that I want to So I was actually working construction for my uncle's company, and you'd wake up at 4 a.m. and it was, I don't know, it wasn't, I was just laboring, so it wasn't necessarily I was doing it to have a trade and whatnot. I was
just making money.
At that point, I was making money, and I needed to make money to survive. And at one point, I was doing that for a month, and I was like, I want to, I want to be in America, and so I booked a ticket with no intention to come back, So and then I went over there, sold a bunch of stuff, sold all my sneaker collection, and I was like, I can buy it back when I make some money and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so then eventually I bought the ticket, got on the plane, and went with a couple suitcases. And first thing I had bought, I got off the plane and we moved straight into an apartment with my now wife.
Yeah.
So we got a new apartment off the plane. So we're like, we're going to live together. And then we got married within 3 months. And then,
it's insane.
Became American citizen after a few years. And so that was kind of it. Yeah.
When you say you put yourself in places, when it came to, when you were doing footy, put yourself at Roosters training even when you weren't meant to be there.
Yeah, I even did my, when you do work experience.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it at the Roosters,
Yeah.
So I went and did it at the Roosters. So I work in the office and whatnot. I just have a goal, and I just I think, how can I achieve it? So I was like, well, you go be somewhere, meet people, and
So when you got to LA, what are some of the things you did in terms of placing yourself in the right positions?
The things that I did there was placing myself in the right stores. So,
in terms of working for other people?
No, I was when I did my clothing, I was like, I wanted to do my own stuff. I didn't want to work for anybody. I just wanted to make my own stuff, because then it was like I could just make what I wanted and I guess work out how to do stuff. And I didn't have to be I was well, you feel embarrassed if you don't know something. But when you're working for yourself, you don't know stuff. You don't have to pretend you know stuff. It's I can just go make stuff. And it's I don't know what I'm doing, but I have an idea. So how do I make it? How do I bring it to life? Okay. And then I do that a number of times, and I know what I'm doing, So then, and then you can make whatever you want. And then you can, I didn't go and get good somewhere else. I go good doing it and selling it, and then that's kind of basically how I did it. And that was how I had to do it, because I needed to make money. So it was like, okay, I'll start making stuff, and then and selling it, and then making stuff and selling it, and then you start to develop your style. You start to develop the details. Start to get it just gets better and better. So. Yeah, it evolved in front of the audience and the customer, So that was kind of, I think, I mean, that was the way I did it.
Yeah. And in terms of link ups, like I know you're kind of immune to it. That's the word I was looking for before.
I mean, okay.
So you kind of like,
I wouldn't say I'm immune to it.
yeah, but more than the average man, I would say.
Yeah.
In terms of, yeah, like you've collabed with James Harden. If you were to tell any man in Australia that follows basketball, it's pretty insane.
If you tell any man in Australia that doesn't know basketball, they would say, "Who's that?"
True.
Like my dad.
True.
But I'm not, yeah.
But
You know, it's funny though when you bring that up. You do all this stuff in America with all these big name athletes, and a lot of people know who they are here. But when you do the NRL collab, then like my family start to go, "Oh wow, you're doing really well."
yeah. It's weird, eh?
I was like, "Oh, now I'm doing well."
Yeah.
You know, yeah. So yeah, it's just their reality of like what's
what people know.
Yeah, what they know, and that's
That's all it is. Yeah. When it came to being in LA, what were some of the first big, maybe networking moments where you were like, "Oh, I'm on my way," whether it was like a brand owner, store owners, actual celebrities to wear clothes?
I don't really know. It's been like, I remember the first one that I was actually about to give up, and I was like, yeah, it's too hard. Not like,
how long had you been doing it at this point?
It was only a year. I don't know. It wasn't long. It just, Usher wore like a leather jacket, and I was a big Usher fan, like growing up, and he wore a leather jacket at a awards show performance, and then I was like, oh man, I got to keep going, you know, because like I can do it, you know. Yeah, if that person's gonna wear my stuff, then that's like the validation that I need, you know.
Did you figure out how he got his hands on it?
He got it from one of the stores I was selling at. And that's like, that was what I was saying, like getting in the right stores where either the celebrity shops or their stylist shops. And if you were there, then that's, you know, they're going to find your stuff. And that was what I did. Like I tried to crack New York first, like to get into stores. I couldn't get a store in New York. And then I got a store in LA to carry it, and I put in a bunch of stuff in that store that was, you know, $3,000 leather jackets and whatnot. Even the guy told me, it was like, the guy at the store is like, your stuff's too expensive and it looks like everything else that I have. And I said, well, I mean, if it looks like everything else you have, that obviously means your customer likes that style. So then, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, sure enough, I put it in. He's like, okay, we'll just put it in there, and we'll see how it goes. You know, consignment. So, and then I was too kind of nervous to find out how it sold, and then so anyway, they sold out and they wanted more, and they were like, yeah, we've been trying to get a hold of you, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, you know. Then they sold out, but you know, the thing that about my stuff is I made the stuff to fit me, you know, and it wasn't. I came from playing, you know, footy.
Yeah.
So I wasn't like the biggest player, but you're bigger than a regular person, you know. Yeah. So I made the stuff to fit me. So if you ever tried designer clothes, it's made, you know, kind of very small. Yeah. So I think one of the niches that I've had is that the way my stuff fits more of an athlete. Yeah. So when an NFL player wears it, it fits them, you know, or an NBA player wears it, it fits them, or an NRL player, it fits them. It's like, because it's been, I fit modeled my own stuff, and that's because if I like how it fits and looks, then that's, you know, that's where it starts for me.
Yeah. I'm going to ask your first sales pitch when you go to that store. It's such a foreign world to me because it doesn't really happen like that in Australia, right? Like it's all emails, calls, Instagram. Yeah, but back then, like genuinely, did you walk in and pitch it there and then?
Yeah, I had a meeting. I showed the guy the stuff, and
so what? Can you walk me through the pitch? Like, what would you have said? What would you have shown? Like, what was the?
I'm trying to think. The guy was like not interested, and he only took the meeting because it was a friend of a friend organized it, so that, you know, helped. Yeah, so then, I don't know, he wasn't interested in it, and I was kind of like, I was a little bit, I didn't have any like confidence because I hadn't sold to anybody or anything. And I liked the stuff that I made. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good fit for them. And I think that was the thing that he brought up was it's too expensive and it looks like the other stuff that I have here. And I was like, my thing was like, well, that's what I said. Like I said, if it looks like the other stuff you have here, then you have people that would buy it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you're trying to tell me that's a negative, you know?
Yeah.
But the other stuff you have here is also the same price, and it's not the same, but it's similar. You know, it's like a genre of music. It's like, you know, rap music is not all the same. It may sound similar, but it's like a genre. You know, so it's like if your store is selling this genre, then you know, then it's obviously the right fit for your store.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't say that back then, but you know, now how I speak now, that would be the way that I would have approached that, you know. That's kind of like, well, this is what you need, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, bro. So crazy, eh? It's so crazy to think when you mentioned before you kind of made things to suit you and that kind of is what fitted NFL, NBA athletes. It's so crazy to think like a kid from 20s had this love for fashion and all of a sudden that turned into something that like you broke into the American market from yourself just being a bit bigger than the average Aussie, and then that fit itself breaking into the luxury sportswear market. It's just so insane, eh?
Yeah, and I used to think of it as like a when they told me that only the bigger guys are buying your stuff, I'd be like, well, I want everyone to buy my stuff. And I'll be like, it's kind of like if I was playing footy and I'd be like, well,
what position did you play, by the way?
I played hooker.
Yeah.
And I played halfback and I played lock. Like I played all these different. I was more like ball playing.
Yeah, you can tell.
So when I was halfback, I was like, yeah, I'm halfback, cool. And then they're like, well, we want you to play hooker. And then I was like, why don't I play hooker? You know.
Yeah.
And then eventually I played hooker, and I was like, well, I'm actually better at this than I am at halfback, and I actually prefer not to have to manage the fucking game.
Yeah. Guard out a hooker whenever you want.
Yeah, you can do what you want. Like at hooker, it's like
the most
you just have good passes, boom, 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 and you're just ready to roll whenever you see the green light. When you see the green light, you take off.
How did you find defense as a hooker?
I preferred it because you know, I liked playing in the forwards my whole life.
Less isolated, hey.
Yeah, I liked being in the center.
Yeah,
where the action was. But I really liked hooker because you're on the ball and there's just certain tells that, you know, when that happens, this is what you do.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do it robotically, but it's like if you just have like a few different little things in mind when like you're playing and that occurs, you take off and you do. Yeah. And it always worked. You know, the playing hooker was fun because, I had Simon Benetti at the Roosters. He came down and gave me a few pointers, and he's like, you know, there's some pieces of information that, you know, it's like that you want to have when you're a hooker. And if you see this is what you do. Okay. So this was players on the ground, take off. You know, don't like you take off.
Means there's a man down. Yeah. Defensive lines.
Defensive players are on the ground.
Yeah.
Like markers are on the ground. You go because you think about it like this. Defender over here, you know, play the ball. There's no one here, right? So this is called the tight spot. If you can get in the tight spot, you either pull this guy in and then you have the guy coming up there and you have another gap, or you go yourself and you come through. Yeah. And it always that would always be I would even write it on my wrist, tight spot. That's where I want to get to. That's where I want to be. So I would work on like speed out of dummy half, and that would be what I would practice picking the ball up and curving in, and that would be, you know, my sprints would be like that, and I would work on getting into the tight spot, you know. Yeah. But yeah, there was a player on the ground, you go, you know, or I would use the marker, slow marker. I'd go around this guy because he's going to cut off. Like if he was going backwards, I'd go around him because he would shepherd his own player, and I'd get in the tight spot. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that was just. I just enjoyed that a lot.
Talking shit with Daniel Patrick. Yeah. Probably haven't done that in a minute, hey?
Well, it was funny because when I was at the Roosters, I was playing a game, and then Ricky Stewart was barking orders on the sideline, and he's like, told one guy, he said, you got to call super. If you call super, that means they get the ball, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, cool. So I heard super, but then I saw some tells that I just went over, and I was like, well, I'm going to go. And then at the end of the game, Ricky Stewart yelled at me, but like, he's like, someone calls super, you got to give him the ball. And I was like, well, I think to be fair, like if he calls super, but what about if I call super to myself? I'm going. And I saw something better than what that guy had going. So, and I actually did a better run than what I thought that guy would have done. I think that he wanted to see that guy get the ball because he was looking at him as a first grade player, and he wanted to see him do something, So he wanted to get that guy the ball, whereas I was just trying to play. And I actually think that was the nail in the coffin for me at the Roosters. Yeah.
You're just like, fuck this.
Well, no, I think because when he came to talk to me about it, I pushed back on him at it. And I don't think that, you can't always do that because then they're going to just be like, well, he can't listen, And to be fair, maybe I didn't listen, but I was doing the best I could at that time where I thought was the best, Yeah.
Speaking of footy, I meant to ask this question a long time ago, but we're finally here. You work with NBA, NFL pretty closely, hey? Do you work with much NHL? I couldn't really find that. I saw glimpses of it, but
not really.
So we'll take NBA and NFL. You work fairly closely with them. You're a boy who grew up around league for first 20 years of your life. What are some things you think the NRL can do to improve the game or improve the marketability of the game that you see in those sports? Because I think the first thing you might say is numbers and names on jerseys.
Well, I was when that wouldn't be the first thing I was thinking of. I think the biggest problem that I see is that having a personal sense of style is considered not okay here. You know what I mean? It's like no, you got to conform to what everyone else is doing. Whereas like if you are a bit different, then you got the tall poppy syndrome and you try to get cut down. So it's like, okay, well, let's not stand too tall up here, let's not dress too out there, and let's all kind of fall in line. So that would be my thing is like you look at those athletes in America, they're allowed to, be themselves, express themselves. And
what do you think is the way in improving that issue, if you will? Do you think...
well, I think I look at it from a fashion perspective. That's what I do. You look at NFL and NBA tunnel walks. It's like, it's like you go to school here, you wear a uniform, right?
Yeah.
You go play in a team, you wear a uniform. You go to school in America, you don't wear a uniform. It's mufti day every day. It's like you have to develop your own sense of style. And, I always enjoyed mufti day. It was always like, this is great. I can wear whatever I want to school, So it's kind of hard though because you got to think about it every day. Then you got to get up in the morning and you're like, what am I going to wear to school? Because, I used to think about it when I would go to football training. That would be very important to me what I was going to wear to training. But it's kind of the society's conditioned a different way where it's like, you fall in line, you follow what everyone else is doing. And I think it's more encouraged to be yourself in America. And, I think there's a freedom about that in a lot of respects where it's like you wear something weird in LA, it's not half as weird as what someone else is wearing, and it's kind of celebrated and accepted. Whereas like you wear something a little bit out there here, it's like, you're going to get someone saying something, where,
it's a weird culture, eh? How much we take the piss out of each other, but then that kind of extends over.
Yeah.
And it kind of becomes a bit degrading almost at a certain point where when anyone expresses themselves differently to what that person may expect, they're automatically just trying to bring that person back down.
Yeah, and it doesn't even it's not even that weird. It's like, one time I wore a T-shirt and I had another t-shirt underneath as like a layer, and it was like I got made fun of for wearing 15 t-shirts is what they. I was like, no, I'm just wearing 2 t-shirts. It's like because I would roll it together. I don't know. It's like but I don't know. It's just.
What are some other things?
I kind of liked being different in a sense, and I kind of like if everyone goes this way, I want to go that way, and that's just my personality. Like I never really went out, partying or
look at the life you live, man.
Yeah, I never really went out like that. I always kind of, even when I was with footy, I was focused on that. Didn't drink, didn't do anything, all that kind of stuff like drugs or anything like that. I just kind of, I ran a narrow path of that, and I stuck to that even going into fashion. Yeah, so
yeah, the life you've lived itself is a living example of you don't go the direction that other people go.
Yeah,
NRL Junior turned American luxury sportswear designer is. You're the only person that holds that title. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, there are others now,
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. When you actually, before we go to there, NBA, NFL, is there any other things that you think the NRL can take from them in developing the game's marketability?
Well, I think leveraging the personalities you have instead of cutting them down. Yeah. But by doing that, like you said, putting the names on the back is one thing.
Yeah.
And then selling, I don't know, that was another thing that was good with Super League is you had a number where it was kind of confusing because, you would have someone playing with number 54 and that would be fullback. And it's like, well, it's easier to watch someone at number 1 because they're playing fullback. But when you watch an American sport, they pick a number that they want to wear and then they sell that jersey as merch, and it has their name, it has their number. It's easier because that person's name and number is going to be that for the whole year. You don't have to sell 15 different numbers for a person, Yeah.
As a football fan, goalkeeper number 1, striker number 9, defensive midfielder number 6. Everyone knows, that's what you call them. I'm a 6, I'm a DM.
But you can still go and be a different number.
Oh, none of them wear number 6. It's so rare to find it. They're normally the best of the best that choose that. But more often than not, the players all over the pitch have completely random numbers.
Yeah, Beckham goes to Real Madrid, Raul's 7. Yeah. He goes with 23, like Michael Jordan. It's a marketing genius,
Yeah.
He goes to AC Milan, someone's 23, he's 33 then,
Yeah. I think with the...
Or 32, sorry, he was 32 and And I think he was that because of Shaq.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because he was a Lakers fan and,
Yeah. When it comes to... Yeah, the NRL, that's something I think about. I think people will push back on it, but who's playing. If you just, the NRL's so simple, it's 2 lines. If you know the game, you're looking at a second row or your center winger.
If you're going to ask Kalen Ponga what number he wants to wear in the squad, he's probably going to choose number 1.
Yeah.
He's probably going to play halfback. Sorry, not halfback. He's probably going to play fullback the whole year. You put him in 5'8" and he's still wearing number 1. I don't know. Does it really matter?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But I also like the cleanliness of the numbers being, all aligned, where it's yeah.
But kids just don't wear the jerseys. Isn't that? I think that's a big thing about football.
I think they're too expensive, the jerseys.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
you can try and buy a jersey that's $150, and then you have to get one every year. It's I don't know. I think that's quite expensive, don't you think?
Yeah, I completely
Whereas
agree.
The training shirt is $30, and how much more did it cost to make it?
Yeah.
I don't know. How much more did it cost to make a jersey? I don't think it's that much more that it's $150.
You'd know better than most people. Probably not.
It's not difference. I don't think maybe there's a little more detail to it. Maybe it's I just think it's, if you want kids wearing it, there should be a more accessible, a swingman version,
Yeah.
I think they do have that, but it's they'd probably sell that one at Best and Less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if Best and Less still has that deal.
Well, they have with our soccer jersey or the football jersey we did for the Red Bulls, you have the authentic one, and then you have there's a different version that doesn't have the same level of detail and quality. but it's more designed for street, I guess. You know.
Yeah. And it's normally just like the one material rather than the breathability aspects and all that thing. It's just kind of like that nylon, isn't it?
Well, how hard is it to wear a Roosters jersey or your favorite team's jersey, and it's like slim fit jersey that's cut for so no one can tackle you?
Cut
it's
for
like
Connor Watson.
Yeah, it's like, okay, like you want to wear that on the street, it's got to fit like a 90s jersey then.
Yeah.
You know.
I think about this a lot. So Preston Campbell's son, just a complete detour. Oh, his daughter, I think, played in my brother's baseball team when we were younger. So I had this connection to Preston Campbell. Preston Campbell goes to the Titans. As a kid, this is the only footy player I've ever met. I naturally start going for the Titans.
Yeah.
Him and Scotty Prince was there as well. Freak, Scotty Prince, one of the goats. I, back then, bought Titans jerseys. Like my mum and dad would buy me Titans gear. I still hold some of it. Some of it's cool. But I would have loved to have rocked Campbell #1. I think about that all the time when I think about there's kids out there that maybe they're from Penrith, but they'd rock a Pongo #1 jersey because that player just makes them fall in love with the game. You know what I mean? I think
those kids would would have 5-10 different NBA players jerseys that they would wear. You know, so
the kids aren't tribal as us. Like they'll eventually find their
like I said,
club.
I follow players, so it's like if you follow players, then you're gonna get their jersey from wherever they go, and if they change clubs, a lot of it. Like I think a lot of it when Beckham went to Real Madrid, they sold a lot of shirts. Yeah, and then every year they still sell more shirts, and I don't know. I think there's something to that where it's like you can take a lot of things that's successful in America and apply it here and still do it in our own way where it still like feels authentic. But you look at State of Origin, you do it in that arena, Yeah. I think the hard thing too is they have too many sponsors on the jerseys. Like you look at the Premier League, like they'll have one sponsor and they'll have a sleeve sponsor, but it's mostly just one sponsor. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like here it's like every inch of the jersey's covered in a sponsor. It's like it's too much. Yeah.
Design aspect, the one thing that European football giants hold, so like Celtic, this kit is based off Celtic. This is my Sporting Club Helos kit. This is based off like the green and white hoops. I don't even support Celtic. Just kit's always gorgeous. But the thing Celtic do is more often than not, their sponsor will actually change the color of their logo to fit the actual aesthetic of the jersey. So Celtic have had sponsors who have different colored logos go gold to fit in with the green, white, and gold hoops.
Yeah.
I think that's like something over here where we have Knights as a good example. I think they've got NRB on the front at the moment.
Yeah.
So you have red and dark blue and a bit of white mixed in with this dark green square in the middle. I don't find I'd love to wear NRL jerseys for fun. Like I go for Penrith. I don't need to tell people that. Where it's like I'd happily wear a Cowboys jersey if it looked good. You know what I mean? But we don't have that. And I think that's a major flaw. But the 90s jerseys I love.
Yeah, I think the fit of them is important. And I think the sponsorships, like I actually grew up liking the sponsor because it was what the players wore on the field, But I think that from an aesthetic point of view, like you look at America and it's the most commercial market in the world, yet their jerseys, like NBA has one little sponsor, right?
Yeah.
But the NFL has nothing. No sponsors. On the field, no sponsors. You watch, like, they paint every inch of the NRL field with all these different, like, Telstra logos. And
do you know they're not painted?
Oh, yeah?
They're like holograms.
No way.
Only like 2 are painted. No shit. I got told that and I blew my mind. And when you watch the game, you'll notice
the ones that are on the angle?
Yeah.
I know the ones you're talking about.
Yeah.
I always thought they were painted, though.
No, so when like say a player, so I've been at the Penrith game and then gone home and watched the game.
Yeah.
And there's only like 2 on the field.
Yeah.
And then you watch and there's an extra 2. But you'll watch the players say they crash a tackle into that thing. The grass doesn't, like the paint doesn't move, but the grass will kick up, if that makes sense. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So I think there's like 2 in each broadcast.
That's crazy. Yeah.
But yeah, I completely agree. I think the sponsorships on the jerseys take away from.
But I think it's a hard thing too because the economy of like the American sport is like far bigger.
Just
like
population, that's all it is.
Yeah, like if you have a television deal that's paying you like all this money, and then your tickets sales are this much, you don't need to worry about the sponsor. It's just like okay, cool. Like we don't have, but I think that in Australia it's a smaller market, you do need those sponsors. So I think, I don't know, I kind of look at things from, both angles where I'm like, I don't like that, but I can see why they do that,
Yeah.
And I try to look at things in life that way as well. But, I think that's a kind of an interesting aspect of like how commercial America is, yet certain things are sacred still.
Yeah. For you, when you went to do fashion out of footy, that's a pretty rogue career choice back then. Now, there's two guys that stand out, and there's a third that I can't remember off the top of my dome. The two that stand out to me is first you got Lewis Brown.
Okay.
And then you got Isaac John.
Yeah.
What's it like for you to kind of see footy players go into the fashion aspect? And also, has a collab ever crossed your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is kind of cool because, it was looked upon as weird when I did it. But then, not to say that I'm the pioneer and then they're, coming behind that, but I think it's nice to see that people can go that path and
get behind it. Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people want to do things sometimes, but then don't necessarily feel like they can, because it's not necessarily what you do, but it's like, oh, you can do that, you can do whatever you want, really. It's just your own thought that you can't. Yeah. And that's kind of, to break through that was kind of, for me personally, breaking through the idea that I couldn't and then doing it was just, for me, was I did it to kind of prove that I could. And because I thought that I could, but then, you kind of, anyway, I don't know, kind of rambling, but.
No, I know exactly what you mean. Would you ever... especially like Ice to me comes. I've interviewed Ice as well, done a potty with him. Ice is business.
Yeah?
No, I went to YKCR.
Okay, yeah.
Insane setup. He has
yeah. I did a podcast there. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, it's cool, eh? Yeah. That was what, like 18 months ago. Hey.
Yeah. Alexandria, nice little setup there.
That whole street, like
it's hard to park there though. Yeah.
Oh, it's a shit show.
You got to go around lunchtime when everyone ducks out for lunch.
Yeah. But you have Ice. Ice is a businessman, but Louis Brown has shocked me at the level. I don't know if you follow Earls.
Yeah.
But the level of detail he goes to and whatnot, and like for me, Louis Brown was always just this tough as guts center.
Yeah.
You could just get knocked out and play on if he wanted to. Like, it was just insane how tough he was. And to watch him enter the fashion space, did it ever occur to you the idea of like possibly like a collaboration or something where you could bring your minds alike to create something?
I haven't really thought about that because I usually look at doing collabs with like some company that's like an Adidas or something that offers me an audience and, that's like kind of bigger than myself. Kind of like how Earl's doing ASICs is
so cool.
That's a big deal, and that propels Earl's beyond, not to say that it, but that's going to pull Earl's up more than I think a Daniel Patrick collab. And, I think vice versa. But yeah, I'm never against anything like that. I'm always open to stuff like that. I mean, Louis and I are, we know each other and whatnot, and so
that'd be cool, man.
When I think Nate Miles also brought him in when just before he was starting out with Earls and he was wanting to get started on that. And this was a few years ago now, but yeah. So
Nate Miles is really the connector in all of this, isn't he?
He has been a connector in a few things.
That is crazy to think that Nate Miles, State of Origin Nate Miles, is this like business mind.
I don't know if it was a business mind. I just think that, he was like mates with those guys, and then we became mates, and then it was just, connecting the dots. And I think the camaraderie of going having a coffee and
talking,
getting some gear and stuff like that was, it became the thing, it was like, oh, okay, Nate's bringing Louis through, Nate's bringing Isaac through, and then because Nate was living in LA.
Yeah, right.
Because his wife Tess was, doing the film stuff.
Yeah,
so
right.
Yeah, so when he finished his career, he was living over in the States for a little bit. And then, they had an apartment in West Hollywood. And
Yeah, that must be refreshing for you. Was that refreshing for you to have like the footy boys come through after all those years of being over there?
I enjoyed it,
Yeah.
because that was the start of it. And then other people would be coming through, and then they would want to come through. Like 2019, we had a bunch of Roosters players come through, and that's when I became friends with Angus Crichton. And but yeah, I always loved it because there's no one else you can really talk footy to. Yeah. So
What time do you watch it over there?
I barely get to watch it, but there's some games on the weekend that start like 10 or 11 p.m.
That's all right.
Yeah. But if it's like,
following-
after midnight, I'm not watching
Yeah,
it.
it's like following
Origin, I can't watch it.
Yeah.
I can't watch it unless I have to watch the replay, but watching the replay sucks. Because
Yeah,
it's like, you already know what's going to happen. It's like, okay. Yeah. It's hard. It's not as, like, there's no... it's no
Surprise.
suspense or surprise. Yeah, it takes it all out of it. So it's just like, okay, yeah, cool. So I end up just mostly just enjoying the commentary of like, NRL 360 on it, or, Yeah. So I watch NRL 360.
Really?
Most of the time when I'm cooking breakfast, I put that on, and then, But sometimes, like, they start arguing a lot. And I'm just like, I have to turn it off because I need some peace and quiet of like, so I, yeah.
I can't stand it, eh? I can't do it. I don't know how people do it. I can't. I think
I quite enjoy it to a certain point.
they just
Yeah.
how do you put it? Once I got older, I realized like they just do. They don't even believe in what they're saying. They're just thinking about what keeps people engaged, and then that's how they keep their jobs.
Well, they have.
They say like some of the most
think-
outrageous,
yeah.
stupid things I've ever heard,
I
and they're
think.
so anti-player.
Yeah.
That's what I hate, especially
Well,
when they used to be a player themselves. And you
I think Braith is pretty much.
Braith I love.
Yeah, I think it's good to have him host in the show because he was a player. That's what I liked about it last year, because you had two players.
Yeah,
Yeah, you had Braith and Gordy.
yeah. But even Gordy sometimes would say like just outrageous
Everyone
stuff.
has an opinion.
Yeah, that's true.
And
I enjoy
and
it.
there and when you're on those shows, you're paid to have an opinion.
Yeah.
And I think Fox would prefer that it's a polarizing one too, because it creates that argument between them, and yeah.
The guys I enjoy, I'm not sure if you've heard or listened to them. They're called Hello Sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't. Yeah.
They're how would you put it? They're in football. There's a term like the streets won't forget.
So like bloke in a bar?
Way more casual.
Okay.
But like if they walk into a suburban ground at footy and they walk past, say, the hill at Penrith, they walk past Leichhardt Hill, Tom and Eddie would get bombarded. They are the kings of punters and dribblers.
Yeah.
So they're
I
two
think
guys.
I've probably seen them. I have in mind these two guys.
They're
that
on
are-
Bloke every week. They have a episode with Bloke once a week called Dirty Merger Podcast because they hate dirty merger clubs. It's like they hate Dragons, hate Tigers, even though they're Manly fans. But
hypocrites.
but yeah, they give, because they're just two guys. Like they're on like their 700 episode, so they're just two guys that have talked shit for years. They have what's their slogan? Unqualified opinion and unwavering bias. But what they say is they don't deliver with like media obligations because they're an independent entity for the most part. They give, the way they talk on rugby league is, first of all, funny. It's hilarious. They're so funny. You'd enjoy it, man.
Yeah.
And then the way they give their opinion is just of like a level-headed approach rather than when you have like, I don't know, Kenty just barking. But anyway, that's enough footy. I wanted to ask you about the velour jumpsuits for is the Kelce Brothers?
Well, it was for Kelce. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was actually for his teammates for Christmas gifts.
Yeah.
38 of them.
That's insane. So how does, it's arguably the biggest name, well, yeah, it probably is the biggest name, right? Like, yeah, biggest name in NFL. First of all, how does that connection happen? And then second of all,
Comes down to being in the right place. Like I said, like you put yourself in the right place, things can happen.
so how did the collab come about with Kelce?
Well, I've known him for a number of years, and I originally had a store in New York, and he shopped in the store in Soho, and so basically a few years back, I made, like, he wanted to give some of his teammates some tracksuits, and they were velour ones at that time too. And, we made them for him, and, he loved it. And when I've connected with him after that, he's always been so thankful of it, and he's always been like, he still thinks about it. And I've even seen him in a State Farm commercial wearing that same velour tracksuit. I think it was a State Farm commercial. So anyway, then it was coming towards Christmas last year, and I was like, okay, let me see if he wants to do something like that again this year for his teammates. And then, sure enough, he hit me back, like, I'd be down with that. And then, okay, cool. And then some time went by, and then he was a little bit, he didn't really respond. He was busy, playing and whatnot. And I was like, okay, cool, maybe it's not on. And then, anyway, I was sitting back, say, you want to do it? It's cool if you don't, He's like, no, I want to do it. Do we still have enough time? Because, I had to push it because it's like Christmas is coming up. If I'm going to make this, it's like we only got, 10 days to make it happen. And he's like, I'll take 38. Is that too much? And I'm like thinking, nah, that's cool. Whatever you want. Like, it doesn't matter. Like if I'm going to cut 38, whatever, it's like, yeah. So I was like, it's like a lot more than last time. So anyway, so we just did it and made it happen in 10 days and shipped it off. And
so you cut and sew all of it yourself?
Not me personally, but I got a manufacturer that in LA. So, I had to get the fabric and whatnot, and he wanted red. There was no red left. So I'm like, there's no red left, So he's already ordered, He's already ordered and paid, and I was like, crap, there's no red. What am I going to do? So then I went back to him. I was like, there's no red, but can you do gray? And he's like, yeah, cool. Let's do gray. And he wanted it he almost wanted it to be original to what it was last time too. Like kind of, and so I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to make it like that. Original fit, everything. We did black. We did black this time. Originally we did gray for the first run, and then we did black and gray this time. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it was cool. We made it happen, and I think he shouted. Well, I don't think he shouted it out on the podcast, and then that was like, that was such a nice gesture. Like the guy, he's a really good, nice dude, and he didn't have to do that.
Yeah,
but he appreciates what other people do for him, and and I think he's definitely that kind of guy, and I think him and his brother listen to their podcast. They're just genuine blokes. Yeah.
Do you think this is completely unrelated? I don't follow NFL, and it has something to do with him. Do you think Mahomes will catch Brady? Because you know way more about this than I do. So what is it? 3 Mahomes on 3?
It's going to be hard.
Would Brady end on 7 or 8?
I think it was 7.
That's fucking insane.
I think it's going to be hard, but it just depends how much, the longevity of it. But I mean, he could, but he's not going to be able to do it with the same guys,
Yeah.
But it's like Brady's had 3 careers in one, I don't know. I've seen something like that where it's like he's had 3 Hall of Fame careers in his lifetime, and he just keeps going. So it just depends how long and how healthy Mahomes stays, and how hungry he stays too. Because it's one thing to win a title; it's another thing to come back and do it again and again and again and again and again. It's like Penrith; they won 3. Are they going to win 4? They could. They got the team to do it, but it's hard to do it back to back, let alone 4 times. But it could happen. Yeah,
I think it will.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure if you follow it.
I kind of would like to see it, even though you want to see someone new win. But at the same time, you love to see something like that because it's history, and it's like
you won't see when you look at three-peat history in any given sport. It's been 40 years since Parramatta, essentially. It's you probably I don't know if you can. It's so insane to think about. And
what about St. George 11? It was an 11 in a row.
But back then it was a bit different, right? But still,
Well, it's hard to win. It's hard. It's
less
much
balanced
harder.
resources back then.
Yeah.
It was much more of an imbalance across the board where you had like St. George had an insane amount of resources.
Australian
compared to
team.
other clubs. Yeah. But yeah, with Penrith, it's crazy to me because I grew up in Wimbledon, Springwood, if you will, halfway up the mountain. So Penrith fan, except for the 2 years I went for Titans. Boys never failed to remind me about that. But growing up, wooden spoons more often than not, or bottom four-ish. Occasional year would make the 8, occasionally push on the finals doors. And then to watch like where we are now is like permanently cemented in history is just insane. Eh?
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
And
yeah.
like, I think Cleary, like he was 2 grades above me at school. We used to verse him in like school sports and all that. Do you think like if he does it in Origin, probably goes down as a GOAT if his trajectory continues on like this level? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So insane to kind of watch it in real time because Dad will talk about Sterlo or Dad will talk about Joey and yeah. You know what I mean?
I still don't know if he's Joey, you know.
Yeah, but see, like Joey's like a unicorn to me because I never fucking seen it, so I don't know what I'm looking at.
It's kind of like
I seen Joey's Super League debut. That was pretty insane.
it's kind of like Joey's like an artist,
Right.
and I don't know. It's just different. And Cleary's amazing.
Do you feel like it's a bit more robotic nowadays? Because football,
I don't want to. I don't want to say anything. I'm not even trying to say anything bad on Cleary. This is more just this. Like Cleary's amazing. Like Cleary could be an immortal as well, you know, because he's so young and he has so many more. Like he could win a multitude of premierships and whatnot.
I think Immortals at this point, like he'd have to fuck up pretty bad not to reach that level.
But the things that Andrew Johns could do on a football field is like, it was not structured or planned. It was like remember when he started doing? Oh, you won't remember it, but he started doing these banana kicks out of nowhere, and it's just like, but he's been practicing those, and he'll do it in a game, and he has the guts to do that in a game, and I don't know. I just think it's different in a sense where it's like, yeah. Joey had this whole thing where he was just like, yeah, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just,
I completely, I understand. Football, like soccer, at the Premier League level, the one criticism I have of it, and people maybe meet it with resistance at first, but almost everyone I've spoken to comes around to it, is that the Premier League's become so robotic, and there's such a lack of flair and like independent. It's become down to like systems and tactics way too much, and the individual flair's kind of been taken out of the game.
It's just block plays in NRL.
Yeah. Like, and you kind of see that with NRL, right? We're seeing
You still have to make the right decisions. It's still hard. It's like not everyone can do it. Like I couldn't do it. Like and Cleary's like, I think he's the number 1 halfback, and like I said, I think he could be an immortal. My favorite player was always Brad Fittler, even though Andrew Johns, like I said, Andrew Johns was different to Brad Fittler too. Like the things that Andrew Johns could do on a football field,
insane.
It's just like, yeah, it's like a rock star. It's like, you know, he just is like a genius, you know, and it was like, where did that come from? And then creates a whole new, like everyone else wants to do that. And they learn that and they practice that. It's like, I don't know, but I think without Andrew Johns, then you don't get these other guys today. I don't know, maybe, you know, like, yeah, I don't know. It's just different.
Yeah.
And that's why he's an immortal.
It's like Haaland at the moment.
Yeah.
By definition of goals scored, people think, oh, probably goes down as a great striker in history. Anyone that watches football tells you he doesn't even kiss Henri's boot. Like he doesn't even come close to Bergkamp. Doesn't come close to like
Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Original Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Like,
R9's different gravy.
Ronaldo,
Yeah.
like,
Ronaldo.
Ronaldo.
Yeah.
I mean, Cristiano's, you know, fantastic, but like,
you hear that a lot, eh? The R9 argument versus like who's the real Ronaldo. That's a fascinating.
Well, they're both the real Ronaldo, but it's like they're very different players.
Yeah. But yeah, that's like, just modern day football, maybe across the board. I kind of understand what you're saying about the things they could do. Whereas
maybe that's just society now too. Like, I don't know. It's just
everything's focused on
more
productivity,
regimented, you know, where it's like life was more free, you know, back then. And I think maybe it has nothing to do with it, but I think there's a difference in that, you know.
Yeah, 110%.
Yeah.
Now we've gone actually a bit over time. It's 4:40.
Okay, I don't even know, but I think I hear my kids outside now.
So I wanted to ask you one last question. A full circle moment for you. What was it like when the NRL came to Vegas after all those years?
Yeah, that was awesome. It was so amazing to be a part of it because it's like, like I grew up playing, footy. So for me, this is actually like a full circle moment, like you said, of the sport that I love, that I grew up playing, and then to meet all these kind of guys that I idolize, like Brad Fittler and whatnot, and in America, and then also being a part of it with the collab, and I think it was kind of validating and exciting, and I think I want to be part of it, like again next year.
I think I'll be there next year.
I think everyone's. I think a lot more people will come next year.
Yeah,
because the
Penrith
FOMO from this year was real, and I think a lot of people will jump on. I think we'll pack the stadium next year, and then yes, Penrith I heard is in line to come. I wonder who the other teams are.
Bunch of Westies in America will be fascinating.
Yes, that'll be interesting,
especially if they put us with Parramatta, which would make sense. It'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And then you have the Battle of the West in Vegas.
I don't know if they'll do it.
Pokies would pump.
I don't think they'll do the Battle of the West in Vegas.
Yeah.
Because only thing is, it's like I think they want to save that first, like here, because like you want to sell out.
Yeah, South Sydney. Yeah,
it's like they would have played South versus Roosters, but no, you want to have South versus Roosters here. So let's do Roosters v Broncos. I think I don't know.
Did you land in time for Friday night?
I've tried to go to an NRL game the day of arrival. Toast. Because of the jet lag.
How bad is South? Insane.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening there because if you look at it on paper, they have a really great squad.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Way too many cooks in the kitchen.
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there. I don't think it's worth getting rid of the coach, though. Not at least like right now. What are you going to have an interim coach for the rest of the year? That's basically you're giving up the year. Because I think you give Demetrio the year to try and turn it around. And if he doesn't, then obviously, it's results-based. Life is results-based. And that's coaching is like 100% results-based. And it's, you live and die by the sword, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if he doesn't turn it around, Sam Burgess can come in next year and validate what he was saying about South, because remember he had some comments when he was leaving that what he thought was wrong with South, and maybe some of those things were correct, and then we'll see Sam Burgess come back, and wouldn't that be a story of Sam Burgess comes back, was the guy who brought them the title, and then he brings them another title as a coach. Because I think he's doing really well in Warrington. Yeah.
I find it so fascinating. You live in LA, but you have much more than I expected your pulse on rugby league.
Yeah, like I said.
So it must be so refreshing, say, when like Nate Miles moved over there, that you have just an outlet to go, just talk footy.
Yeah.
It's so insane.
That was what was also cool about all those guys coming over too, because they would come to the store, and we had a lot of players come to the store, and young guys, big name players, and connecting with all of them was great. Just seeing just chatting and I like to chat. Obviously, that's why we've gone over. But I had connected with some Broncos guys, and then Kobe Hetherington. Connected with him, and I actually knew his dad very well growing up. I would spend a lot of time with his dad. I would stay at his dad's house.
Yeah.
I even was up in Baralabar at their farm as a kid,
Yeah, wow.
So I was like, Kobe didn't know that. And then I was like, I'd tell him all these stories about, like his dad. You know his dad, right? Jason Hetherington. Yeah, he was like a legend for Queensland and the Bulldogs and stuff. So
how many caps? Jason Hetherington. What would that be like?
Oh, he won grand final with the Bulldogs in '95, I think. And then was...
Where did he end up? Where did he finish?
Bulldogs, I think.
But before 04.
Yeah, I would think he would have ended up.
See, for me, it's hard because
Well, he played Super League too. I remember that.
yeah. See, it's hard for me to kind of, because I wasn't around, like I wasn't conscious of it all back then. So trying to label dates, but yeah, that's crazy that you had a connection to Kobe Hetherington.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I had it with his dad. You know, he was a great guy. He would come to my junior grand finals and whatnot, and so. But yeah, it was so connecting with people like that, and then you become friends. You know, because Billy Walters too came over on the first trip. You know, when they did the launch.
Yeah.
And then he came to the store this time again, and then you forge a friendship in that way, and yeah,
that would have been cool.
Even Aaron Woods caught up with him at Parramatta Combank, you know, this last weekend, and he was over on the trip end of last year, and this time obviously in Vegas as well on when they did the round 1 launch.
Yeah.
So yeah, you kind of build a lot of friendships from there.
And just, go from there.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to the Roosters game tomorrow. Roosters Penrith, and then
up the pars.
Huh?
Up the pars.
Yeah. But we went to dinner in LA with in Bel Air with the Roosters team, and I had a good chat with Trent Robinson. He invited me along to the game, and so I'll be doing that tomorrow, and that's kind of
that's so sick. That's so sick.
So
you reckon your boys are gonna win?
The Roosters? I don't know. I mean, Cleary's out. Yeah.
Sam Walker's out, isn't he? Did he get cleared?
No, he got cleared. Sandon Smith is out though.
What a little find he's been, eh?
Yeah.
He's been like cool to watch, kind of find his way.
You know what's interesting about him is I didn't know who he was. And
I
don't know, he was one of the first people I was having a chat to at the dinner that we were at.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it was like we were having a good chat, and didn't know his name was Sandon Smith. My brother did a trick, and for Brandon Smith, where you basically guesses the name of the person that they're thinking, and he was thinking Sandon Smith, and I was like, is he just making that up because he's Brandon Smith and Sandon Smith? And I always thought it was so interesting that you got Sandon Smith and Brandon Smith, and Brandon Smith's another great bloke too.
Yeah,
like you got so many great blokes in that roost. Like you got some great blokes in NRL in general, but like he's such a character, that guy, and just a great bloke. But I thought he was taking the piss, and then I realized that no, these Sandon and Brandon share the hooking roles, and I was like, this is so interesting.
It's such a phenomenon, such a
But
fascinating
and then now I see Sandon, he's like the next big thing for the Roosters, you know, and I'm like, wow, this is, you know. But I connected with him similar to how I connect with some of these NFL guys, not knowing much about them, but then taking like, you know, just being interested in the person because he's there, you know, because and then oh wow, you see their trajectory, then you have a keener eye on where they're going too. Yeah,
that's so cool. Anyway, brother.
Yeah,
thanks for hopping on. It's been an honor.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week. Up Penrith. I love Penrith Panthers. The man in front of me is definitely going for Roosters, even though he might not say it tomorrow night. And if you ever want to design a football kit, SC Helos is more than happy to hop on the front of it.
Oh yeah, there you go.
See you next week.